gonna talk some LA Galaxy because the LA Galaxy are still goose egging. They have no wins. They're off to not just the worst start for defending MLS Cup champion ever. They're off to the worst start. Like, no one has ever been winless this long. It is hard to be winless for this long, and people are asking questions. They have been asking questions. Like, how is it you just won MLS Cup? How is it possible that you're this bad? So, but before we get to the Will Kuntz thing, though, I've been watching, like, we did Greg Vanney on Blazing Hot Presser like a couple shows ago. And then I've been watching all his pressers after their losses. And this last loss at Philly was one of the best ones yet. They actually went up 2-0.
Yeah.
At Philly.
Yeah.
At Philly. They were the road team at Subi Park against the Philly Union, and they went up 2-0. Marco Royce, who hasn't done all year.
2 assists.
You guys think that it was his first 2 assists of his MLS career?
That's crazy. That's crazy.
You guys think Ferreira has been a bust with it?
Jesus Ferreira is better than Marco Royce agenda.
At least he's got 7 assists. I mean, that's something. Marco Royce just got his first 2, but he had the Galaxy up 2-0 at Philly. And it's funny because we were talking on the editorial desk. The senior editors were like, oh, well, if the Galaxy win this, we're going to have to write the Galaxy get their first win story for the post-game content. And I literally said, no, we're not. Like, we're not going to have to write that. Just
don't worry.
If you guys watch the Galaxy this year, we're not going to have to write that. Like, there's no way. Even with them up to, usually, like, we can start talking about angles when a team has a multi-goal lead, and we're like, all right, this might be final. This might be how it goes. So if that's what happens, this is how we should tackle it. So they were doing that, and I was trying to say, I was like, they're not going to hold this lead. 0% chance. I'm just as confident about this as I am when I say it about the Chicago Fire. Like, when a team has that Chicago Fire in them, like this Galaxy team does, you can tell, you can feel it. Like, you can feel that they're not keeping the lead. And needless to say, they did not. They gave the lead away and then got bammed on in like the 88th or the 92nd or so. It was like at the very end, and they lost 3-2 to move their record to, like, they are 0-10-3, double-digit losses. 0-10-3, a cool little 0.23.
Lost a game without conceding a shot.
0.2 and somehow lost a game without conceding a shot. So anyway, like, we all know they're like it's one of the stories of the league right now, how bad they are. I've been watching the Vanney pressers, and my take on the Vanney pressers after watching the last few of them after these losses, he's talking too much. Like,
yeah, he is yapping a lot.
Like they're asking him in the pressers, like, what happened in this game, and he's going like so deep.
He goes 2K words.
He goes 2K words.
Yeah.
He goes so deep into the fine points of it, and he's like, well, if you look what happened between the 42nd and the 58th minute with their center backs, we tried lining it up like this to take advantage of this matchup. But then if you see how the Philly Union do this, this, and this, that kind of counteracted how we were doing this, this, and this, and then that got all out of whack. So then they scored this goal, and then that was the one that made it 2-1. So we got a little rattled from there, but I was pleased with the response. But then their defensive midfield was able to do this, this, and this. It's like, dude, like, when you're in a run like this, like, the fine points don't even matter.
Just don't say.
Literally, just be like
embarrassed. Just be like, I'm embarrassed.
He's just like droning on about like the intricacies of why they're taking every L, and it just, like, it doesn't matter. Like, when you're 0-10-3, like, you're digging the hole deeper by trying to explain it.
Yeah.
And, like, not only is he going too deep into what's happening in the games, but he's also doing the, like, well, all 3 of our DPs are hurt, so what do you want from me?
And he's been like, oh, well, the team's been good, actually. He hit a dude, the team's been good, actually. Like, or we've had chances.
So because I was watching the one after the 7-0 against the Red Bulls, and I was like, what's he going to say? And he's like, well, this is the first one that got away from us. Most of these games we've been competitive. We've been competitive in most of these games. This one was just like one that you throw in the bin. But, like, for the it's like, no, man, no. You're going to get, I mean, he's probably going to get fired anyway. But, like,
that's crazy, though, because I feel like it's not his fault.
I always think of it of, like, how would I handle it if I was the coach? Like, the just, like, talking way too much about what happened in the game. I don't think that's the way you handle a situation like this. I think you just, like, take your medicine and
you click that motherfucking pen, buddy.
You do the opposite of try to. You can explain it to an extent. He's just going 2K words, and it's way too much.
No, I think he just should do the classic coach thing of be like, we were bad. Next, you. Greg, do you have an opening statement? Nope. Next question.
It's tough. I don't really know if there's like a right way to handle being 0-10-3.
I think you don't. You just act visibly upset. He's not acting visibly upset. He's just like, yeah, okay.
He seems upset, but he seems defensive.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to own it. He doesn't. It doesn't. I feel like it doesn't feel real to him.
Like in his mind, he's like, man, like we're a few bounces away from like not being that bad.
But
and
I understand
these
why.
Reporters and these fans just don't know ball. So like,
I understand why, because you go and watch this interview that we're about to watch, and you have the general manager of your team gallivanting around the United States of America, being like, yeah, well, we sold our soul to the devil for last season, but that happened.
So yeah, that brings us to Will Kuntz. Vanney is doing all that at the pressers. Meanwhile, they sent Will Kuntz
on a PR tour,
on a media tour.
What?
On a media, like,
which is confirmed, by the way, because the Cooligans said that the LA Galaxy PR reached out to them to set this up.
And that doesn't surprise me to hear that, because I think it felt like a strategic, like, all right, we're down bad right now. Like, something that we can do to help the situation would be to have the like air of transparency. Like, we're gonna own it, right? We're gonna talk about it. We're not gonna hide from it. Like Atlanta United, have you heard from Garth in months?
Where's Garth?
Where is he?
They're hiding him.
Where's the Garth and Chris duo? They're like taking the approach, honestly, that I think
that's what I would do. That's what my goddamn face.
That's what I would do. I wouldn't do what they did, which is send the GM onto the Cooligan, which is a comedy podcast.
Not yet.
And then the Landon Donovan, Tim Howard show. I haven't even watched that one. We're gonna watch the Cooligan.
Also, first of all, we're a Galaxy podcast, Galaxy PR. We went to the Galaxy game. You know who we are. I know you know who we are. And third of all, our email's on the damn podcast. Like, how did we not get the PR call?
We would have taken the Will Kuntz interview.
Dude, us and Kuntz could have kicked it, bro. I'm just saying.
I think he would have enjoyed it. But anyway,
you could have been an under the lights participant.
Will Kuntz did like a goddamn hour-long hit on the Cooligans, and he talks. He
talks more about the Knicks, by the way, than actually like.
They ask him. They're like, what's going on with the Galaxy, and he gives his reasoning, which I was legitimately curious to hear what he had to say, which is why we're gonna play it and react to it. But I think another lens to watch this through is just the strategy, right? The PR strategy of like, all right, we're in this situation. We just won MLS Cup. Now we're 10-3. Pretty unprecedented. How should we handle it? Should we Garth and Chris it, hide away, not talk to anybody, pretend it's not happening? Or should we send him on a press tour? There's not a lot of good answers.
No.
They chose the press tour option. And
I love that the Cooligans too are clip farming the out of this man. Like, they have been. Dude, the thumb. Wait, show the thumb. Show the thumb. Wait, yo, the thumb is crazy.
Look at this.
The thumb is crazy, bro. The thumb is crazy, bro. Look at his face.
It's on him. Do you think he saw that and was like, guys, come on?
Bro, they must have, right? Dude, that's crazy work. Cooligans, bro.
I feel like them getting this interview should have been on the condition of not doing him with a thumb like that.
Dude, that's so
the facial expression. Like, that's like a thumb you would make.
Bro, that's some I would make. Like, what? What are they doing?
Anyway, it is an hour long, so we are absolutely not going to watch all of it, but I found a starting point that I thought was like sort of the money answer, where he's talking about kind of what's gone wrong with the Galaxy this year. So we're going to watch that segment of it. I have it pulled up right here. And then we're going to no, you haven't seen this yet, have you?
Oh, no, I watched it.
Oh, you watched it?
Yeah, I watched the whole thing, bro. When that's dropped. See, okay, one thing that Chad probably doesn't know about me, I'm on all of our competitors. I watch all of them. I view watch them. I'm pocket watching like crazy on the Cooligans, and I will say this was a good ad.
I like the Cooligans. I love them. I hung out with them. They probably don't even remember, but they had an event, MLS Cup 2019, and what happened was they booked their event.
Oh, I remember.
They booked their event for a brewery on Capitol Hill, where we are right now. And it was like way too small, and them and like 100 soccer journos in like MLS Cup media got basically kicked out. And literally everyone I was the only one who lived there. I was like hosting everyone basically. And they all just turned to me and they're like, do you know where we can go with this many people? And I went, I know exactly where to go. and I took them all to Rhinehouse.
Yeah.
And it was so sick.
Yes.
Because I was like the hero because they were like, this is perfect. This has room for everyone. I was like, yeah, see?
You're like, damn right it does. You should have called me in the beginning.
That's just me thinking on my feet right there, Cooligans.
Yeah.
But like I said, there were so many people there. I don't know if they actually know that it was me who did that.
Yeah. Well, Cooligans, you should come out here for the Club World Cup and get on the pod because we want to farm you for
we should probably collab with them. But anyway, this is a little segment of their interview with LA Galaxy GM Will Kuntz.
We've been talking about this, especially since the season started, and after 3-4 games, we're like, what is going on with LA? And everybody has their theories, and then obviously the conversations about the roster rules in MLS and players that you had to get rid of and meeting salary cap issues and stuff like that. So let's just get it from the horse's mouth,
right?
Because we're sort of speculating. I'm like texting Tom Boger. I'm like, yo, what's up with this?
Don Garber, and he's saying this is your mother, not Don Garber.
So obviously, like you had to get rid of, or I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the players that left, that are obviously notable.
Look at this, he's got a notepad, bro.
Jovic, Marky Delgado. This is, you win MLS Cup, and then a couple days later, you're like, oh, we got to get rid of these guys.
Yeah.
So why? And obviously, I'm sure there's contract issues. Players want to have control of their own lives, so there's a lot going on. But in general, the theory we have is that, or what we were told, was that the MLS Cup bonuses affect the salary cap in the next season. So that's why you have to, keep the salary cap down.
And maybe there's also other roster machinations that stop you.
But from a GM, what were the challenges right after winning that MLS Cup in terms of
really
the
hard?
This is good because we can put everybody to sleep. Hear me talk about it.
I mean, we got MLS sickos.
Yeah. Look, it's a long, sort of drawn out answer, but the short answer is we were about $2.5 million over the cap with the roster going.
That's crazy.
Let's start right there.
That's crazy. How does he have a job?
Because they won MLS Cup off it. That's why.
That's crazy. $2 million over the cap?
Like, how does that? Like, he explains how it happened. I guess, but like. It's not good.
Your entire job as a general man. Also, in the lead up to this, he talks about obviously that he worked for the league. And so he knows the ins and outs of all the crazy mechanisms and all of that. How in the world, bro? How in the world do you know about all this? Know for a fact that the cap is going to hit the next season for your bonuses and then structure your roster like that? How do you have a job?
Because it was all designed to sell out for the ring. That's why.
But like, you gotta know that's silly.
It's not silly because it's like about getting the ring at all costs. I can understand that logic. I can a lot. Like, it's not like there's sports where we've seen teams do that. Like the Rams did that a couple years ago. They like went all in for the one ring and then had to take a step back. That's what the Galaxy were doing. But I think we're gonna get into it deeper into his answers, but like there's ways to sell out for the ring and not end up $2 million over the cap.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, the bottom line is that they sold out for the ring and they got it, which that's more power to them.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't have been at this steep of a price. There's no way, man. 10-3. Like, there's no way that they should have been in a situation where they would tank like this. I just really don't think so.
Yeah.
Going into the offseason, right? And there's things like guys like Gabriel Peck and Dejan Jovic, just because they turned 1 year older, they each became $500,000 more expensive on the cap, right?
Okay, pause. Sorry, I gotta pause again. That's my problem too, bro. You knew that these two players were gonna do another $1 million combined, right? Against the cap, and you're like, nah, it's really a sellout. It just seems so dumb to me to do that and to think in some world you were going to be competitive in the next year and that you were going to have a job, because sports is such a what have you done for me lately thing, right? Like, I understand that the ring is so important, but it's like, if you win the ring and then you tank the next season, people don't give about the ring.
So I don't think that's true. I think that most fans, if you told them that they would get a ring, but then the next season they would take a step back or miss the playoffs, it's a trade-off that a lot of fans would happily make. The Sounders made a very similar calculation with Champions League.
There were fans that said they were like,
Yeah,
I
but
would trade
no,
Champions League
for making the
yeah,
MLS.
I was like,
playoffs.
all right, bro, shut up.
No one, but so like I can honestly get behind that if your objective is to sell out for the ring and then you actually get it, which they did. But when you do that and then you are this bad,
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever like
But
the
it's-
Rams example, they went like 7-9 or something. Like if the Galaxy were even averaging like 1.1 points per game right now, it would still be a big step back. Their fans would probably still be pissed, but like Will Kuntz and Greg Vanney's jobs wouldn't even be like a second thought. People would be like, they just won a ship last year. It's not as good right now, but they clearly can be trusted to like build a championship team. And it makes sense, like some of what happened with the cap, because we sold out for the ring. So like, I don't think their job security would be under scrutiny whatsoever if they were even between like 1.0 and 1.3 points per game.
Well,
I really don't. But like the problem is they're playing at historically 0.23 points.
But it's also the
They
same.
are pushing the limits.
Yeah,
of
they're
this.
not even. Yeah, like in what Eric says here, he says, who could have predicted the players would have a birthday? Exactly. That's my problem. Is like, it is your task as a GM. Absolutely. I get it. You sold out for the ring. That's your strategy. Your next step as a general manager of a professional sports organization is to go, okay, this is what we're going to do this year. We're settled on this. We're sold on this. My entire job is now to figure out what comes next, because you understand that you've built in all these bonuses, you've built in all this stuff. He has the spreadsheet. He knows what it's going to look like in the next year. It's how do we figure this out, keep the core of these players together, or figure out how to make this work next season. They didn't do that. They didn't do that till the end of the season. Then they panic sold everyone. They were doing like delayed loan repayments by getting Gam and Tam from random teams for like all of their, like random international spots and like that. That's my question, I guess, to Will Kuntz is like, I understand, I guess, the methodology, and congratulations on winning the cup. You had one of the most fun to watch teams as well.
Great team
in the league. And yet, like, were you betting that they were going to raise the salary cap this year? Because they did vote down potentially raising it up even higher. So like maybe they were hedging their bets on that. And even so, why have you not season-ending injured Ricky Puig? Because you could have essentially kept your entire roster together by season-ending injured Ricky Puig. Your salary
They're
cap,
banking on him getting back in the
like
day,
stupid.
but it's way too late
it's
now.
so dumb.
That was the wrong gamble. That was another
a
one.
terrible gamble. You could have season-ending injured and kept your entire team together, and you need to think about that. So, but maybe he talks about that here, and we can jump.
Eric,
in.
I think the cap, I thought it was more like 16 or 20 or something.
I thought it was closer to 22, but not 22. But
I think
20 as well.
it's quite a bit higher than 12.
Yeah,
But like
it's also with DP spots, it could be whatever.
all right. Yeah, let's keep watching, because there's a truly crazy part of this.
I'll be quiet.
Pushed our chips into the table a little bit last year when we went for Marco, right? We knew that it was going to maybe put us in a difficult spot,
yeah.
but we're so close. We got to do whatever we can to increase our odds to win a
Okay,
Yeah,
championship.
no. Okay, that's what I was gonna.
Yeah.
Let me start this one. 'Cause
Yeah.
This is the part where, why did they sign Marco Royce?
Why did they sign Marco Royce?
So he's saying it like they did it to drastically, or like to increase their odds of winning it that year. Did that even do that?
No.
He didn't. Was he like a big contributor to their playoff run? Not to my memory.
Nope.
He hasn't done anything really
He was injured.
Yeah, they probably win that ship without Marco Royce. And that's the one of this, like the whole philosophy of selling out for the ring. I get it. Like that makes sense to me. This is where I'm like,
That's the
you
Icarus
didn't-
moment.
you didn't need to do that.
No.
And
You-
that is a huge reason that you're in this situation right now.
You could say the
and-
whole reason.
A big part of it, man, is that we've theorized a lot about what's happening to them. And after watching this interview, I think if there's one place that they went really wrong, it's this right here, because it didn't increase their odds of winning the championship. They probably would have done it anyway. It put them like egregiously against the cap, to the point where look at what's happened to them now. And Marco Royce, his assists that he got against Philly in another game that they lost, those were his first 2 MLS assists. he hasn't really done anything in MLS.
Yeah.
Why did they do that?
This goes to my narrative that I don't think Will Kuntz is good at his job. I really don't. I don't understand how, as a general manager, you look at your table and you're like, okay, we're really pushing this cap already. We're already probably the best team in the league. You know, we're playing really well together. And then this opportunity comes up to get what is essentially a jersey sales name when you're already selling out your stadium because you have Ricky Puig, who is an amazing player and a jersey salesman. It's so baffling to me that he took a bite of the apple in the Garden of Eden, Ari, because immediately it drained the life from him and this team. What a stupid, dumb transfer. And obviously hindsight is 2020, but I think even when they made that move, I was a little bit confused. I was like, I mean, cool, I guess it's Marco Royce, but like,
I think I kind of bought into the like, oh Jesus, like this super loaded team got even more loaded because I mean Marco Royce was a great player in the Bundesliga, but
we weren't aware of their salary cap position at that point.
No,
and
exactly.
And I think
if I had known it was going to put them like this, I would have been like, Will, don't stop, please. No,
that's what I'm saying. It's like, how do you not sit there and say,
but then,
okay, I know if we win MLS Cup, right? You always need to be in that mindset because you got to look at the potentials. People have got on the Sounders GM on Craig for the escalators in Morris's contract hitting because they didn't expect him to play at the 9, right? You have to expect that these things might potentially happen and have a game plan for them. The Sounders did, okay? They did have a game plan when this happened. Maybe it changed things up in the way that they approached stuff and they didn't make a big signing at the 9, but that's what it was, right? That's what it was. And I'm sorry, you are in a league with too much parity to say that. And you should know that. And it pins me in a place where I feel like he's just trying to make this name for himself. And he's trying to be the guy who's like, I'm smarter than the cap. I'm smarter than all this. You actually just don't have to worry about business and all of this stuff. And it's like, I'm sorry, people talked about Craig Weibel. Yeah, you know what? He doesn't have a ring yet. You're right. He doesn't have anything yet. But Will Kuntz has 1 ring and a nightmare of a roster. I would much rather have no rings and a consistently successful competitive roster than that. Because over the long haul, the Galaxy don't want to go back to being what they were. They boycotted and fought against the front office and another inept GM before this. And I feel like in some ways, they're just getting the same thing in a different flavor.
It brings up an interesting question of like, so say Seattle was in this situation and someone told you,
yeah,
you can have another MLS Cup, but the next season you are going to be at 0.23 points per game for the first 12 games. And like, that's what we know right now. Like we don't even know how bad it's going to get, but let's just say that 0.23 is like what they play at this year. If someone told you Seattle could have another MLS Cup, but the next season you're going to play at 0.23, I don't think I would take that. No. I don't think I could handle.
Also, it didn't have to be like that. That's my problem with it is like this dichotomy of this or that. It doesn't have to be that.
Right. It never
had to be that.
It's a false choice. But like, if you did have to make the choice, like I was saying, like if you make that points per game, like 1.2, I do take that. I think.
We literally said that last season was successful and we just made the Western Conference final. And it felt successful. I felt like last season was fun, and then, enjoyable, and a good season.
You can have the cup, but the team's going to play at 0.23, or you don't have the cup and the team is just as good as it pretty much always is. And you don't have the cup that year, but you have a reasonable shot at trophies going into the next year. Like I'd take the latter.
My problem is consistency in sports is more important than anything.
Because it's bites at the apple. That's what you're trying.
It is.
Like you're not gonna win every trophy every year, but it's all about like putting yourself in the position as many times as possible to do so. And if you put yourself in those situations over and over and over and over again, the odds that you're gonna break through and win a couple are drastically higher.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Seattle's done well at. Have they won every MLS Cup they've been to? No, but they went to 4 and they were able to pick off 2.
They won a Champions Cup.
Have they won Champions League every year they've been in it? Famously, no. But they took that seriously. They grinded it. They played in that tournament for years. They gave themselves like bite after bite after bite after bite at the apple, and eventually they broke through. In this situation, you're sacrificing the bites.
Like you went from a Galaxy team that like I said, kicked out their president, kicked out their coach, was like,
They have to do that again, by the way.
that's what I'm saying. It's like you. I think Will Kuntz even said, he's like, "Oh, I wish I would have known who would have made a deal with the devil, so I would have been able to prepare for this." It's like, you made a deal with the devil. You did. You constructed this roster. What are you talking
But
about?
so okay, like on the topic of like him being bad at his job.
I think he's terrible at his job.
Well, but okay, I'm just devil's advocate.
Sure.
Don't you also have to acknowledge that he helped build the team last year that was insanely good?
Ricky Puig came before him.
Did he?
Pretty sure, right? Will Kuntz hasn't been there that long. And I think Ricky Puig signed before that. Because Puig has been there. He's on his second contract now. Like, maybe I'm wrong here. This is Fact Check Nation.
20
Came after Ricky Puig.
What about what
The
about
additions of-
Joey Paints and
Okay.
Gabriel Peck?
Absolutely. But that was after 2 seasons of seeing, okay, this is a serviceable team, but we need these specific pieces. Okay, awesome. We're going to go out and get those 2 pieces. Yes. Joveljic, Peck, Paintsill, great signings.
I thought of
Absolutely
him
give it
as a
to 'em.
good GM before
That's
this
great.
because of all that.
But my problem is you can make good signings and still be a bad GM. And that's my
Because
problem.
a lot of the job is cap management.
That's what I'm saying. You're in a salary cap league, and it's so dumb and ignorant when you know what your fans just went through. You know that all that they want is to feel sustainable and successful because they just went through the roller coaster ride of being a terrible team. Didn't they spoon? They spooned before, right? Or they were close to spooning at least.
They were
in
they were
a
incredibly
post-year.
bad. I mean, they were bad enough that there was like fan protests going
Yeah,
on.
and I'm sorry, like now you're back to that level, and you wanna go, oh well, we won you the cup though. I don't think fans wanted to sell everything.
I think that would fly if they were not at 0.23.
That's what I'm saying.
Man. That is
That's what I'm
just
saying.
crazy.
It
like,
just
like they actually could have gotten away with this like optically.
yeah.
They could have, but they botched it so bad that now they literally they haven't won a game yet.
How do you know?
How have you not won a game?
Yeah.
CF Montreal has won a game. Oh my bad.
Yeah, you're good.
It was going to be difficult, and it's math, right? It's not like this was a surprise. You do get
Dumbass.
your bonuses that were achieved hit, against your salary budget number the next year. So because we had a lot of guys who did everything, that's a real thing. And then when you have to re-sign somebody like Maya Yoshida, even if we put new bonuses into his contract, they are still counted as having been triggered because he played like every single minute last year and we won all the playoff games.
You
and all
have to
that. So
re-sign him?
you're up against it. But I think the real issue is because I'm not making excuses. There have been other teams that every team that wins goes up against this. In MLS, the way the rules are structured, if you're going to lose a DP like Ricky, and if you're going to have a guy like Marco, your highest TAM player dealing with a bulky knee, then it becomes really difficult to compete, right? When you lose a DP and you're dealing with injuries to whether it's a DP,
Okay. Difficult to compete. Okay.
There's
Difficult
literally
to,
mechanisms,
but difficult to compete for trophies.
yeah,
Okay.
sure, yeah, agreed,
Okay.
agreed.
Difficult to not rock 0.23 points per game. That's, I think, maybe where I diverge.
I agree. Like also there are roster mechanisms for long-term injured players, including season-ending injuries. And whether or not the player likes that or not, that's your job to sell him on that if it's best for the team. And I'm sorry, that's the truth. Like that is the truth. To pretend like, oh, it's because we have a really high TAM player who's injured all the time and it's just dog. And also like we have Ricky Puig who's injured. That's why we're bad. It's like, okay, well it's dumb to ignore that there are possibilities to work within that.
I think when you boil it down, I think probably the biggest thing is the Royce thing. I just
dumb.
I just don't know what they were.
Icarus, bro. Icarus.
They Icarus on that one, and then banking on being able to stay afloat, and then Ricky Puig to come back and save it. That was clearly the wrong gamble.
high salary TAM guy.
Yeah.
The hardest thing to do in MLS is have depth, right? And you're getting tested at positions that you just cannot possibly replace. And so, when you go back and you're like, look at every, MLS Cup winner of the last 10 years and be like, all right, next year, take out their best DP, right? And take out their highest non-DP in terms of salary and see what that roster looks like, right? That's where the league rules really hurt us. Like we can't, you have to be kind of fortunate in who gets hurt and when they get hurt. And there's no doubt that losing Ricky's, it's like taking, I was going to say it's like taking Steph Curry off the Warriors, but he came out the other night and they won, right? So maybe it's like taking Jokic, it's taking Jalen Brunson off the Knicks, right? Yeah. And that's it's a little guy who's the engine of the team, but and there are reasons why the league rules are the way they are, but it's impossible for teams to have replacements for great players. And so last year we were really fortunate that we got a ton of minutes in production from our 3 DPs. This year we haven't even had one yet, and Joe Payne still missed a lot of time. And Gabe and Joe both got hurt. Kansas City again, what else can go wrong, right? Yeah. But that's the reality. That's for me. That's the thing about this league that makes it the hardest, right? If you have the wrong injury, you just kind of toast because in any other league in the world, you have a backup or you can go get somebody. Here, you're kind of handcuffed, right? And then in the case of a guy like Dejan Joveljic, we're like, all right, maybe we can give him a TAM deal and keep him, and we're negotiating, and we think we can get there. And then Tigres comes and is like, bro, we'll triple your salary. And you're like, that's kind of tough. And then Kansas City's like, we'll quadruple your salary. And you're like, all right, man, well, good for you. Get the bag and go. But because we have 3 guys already making that money, like I can't possibly pay Dejan what he would need to earn or what he can earn somewhere else. And he's got a baby on the way. And look, $4 million goes a lot further or $3 million goes a lot further in Kansas City than it does in LA. And I get that, right? So again, that's kind of the reality of our league. It's a problem of having success and having guys who produce. So it's a good problem to have, but yeah, it definitely makes it tough. And you only have 5 weeks between MLS Cup and the start of the preseason, right? So we're up against it. We're trying to do all this stuff. We just found out we don't have Ricky for the year, basically, or for most of the year in late November, right? So you're now trying to figure out how do we do this without Ricky? Everything we've been doing was obviously having Ricky in the mix. And then, the question is, do we go away from having Ricky, right? Do we go away from our plan just for a 2025 plan or a first half of 2025 plan, or do we keep the overall plan in place and put together a roster that we think is going to be best when we're healthy?
Oh, God. I would hate if my GM got on a goddamn podcast about the New York Knicks and said that it is impossible. I would be calling for his firing the next day. Because I don't ever want to hear that it's impossible. It's not, man. Impossible. It's not impossible. You are being obtuse and like very weirdly dismissive.
Well, and so Greg Vanney's been like leaning on the injuries a lot too. Like the big line, I think Will Kuntz just said it there, but like take any DP off any team and you're basically chalked. Not the ones that are run well.
No.
Look at all. Yeah, I mean, Seattle's one example, but we're homers, so you can use any example you want. Who are the best teams in the league right now? Columbus Crew, Inter Miami.
I'm sorry, Vancouver Whitecaps, who haven't had one of their most important starters of the whole entire season, and then have not only had that, have had more schedule congestion than anyone else in the league, and have been banking on random young guys. I'm sorry, guess who's getting it done in all of those games? You don't think that you don't have as much talent, but you just won the cup?
Like, if what he was saying was true, then Ryan Gauld being taken out of Vancouver should have chalked them, right?
Yeah.
Logically.
Yeah. Well, even like I'm saying, Raul Ruidiaz not performing. He's your highest paid player on the team, and he was sitting on the bench. It's just ridiculous. It is absurd to me that this guy is a general manager in this league. And you're saying it's impossible? What? That's crazy. Like, there are multiple examples that we can pull off our head in the last 2 years. We're not even talking about and he's saying, and also like Marco Royce isn't doing anything. Okay, well, that's your fault. Yeah. That's not Marco Royce's fault. That's your fault, bro. You made that signing.
I just like after listening to that interview, my biggest takeaway was, did you sign Marco Royce?
Yeah.
Why?
And why in the hell did you go on a podcast, bro?
Well, so yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the whole
the optics,
the strategy of sending him out for the media tour. So I imagine what they were thinking is like what I was saying. Like, we don't want the perception that we are like hiding from what's happening.
Yeah.
So it'll there's no good course of action in this scenario when you're 0-10-3. How should we handle being 0-10-3?
In fact, there's no precedent for how to handle it. And
there's literally not. They're the first team to ever do that, not win any of their first 13 games. You know what should be impossible in Major League Soccer? That.
Yeah, literally. Like, this is a league where that is supposed to be not
that is literally the rules are there to specifically make exactly that impossible.
Yeah.
The whole point of a parity-driven league is so this doesn't happen.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. That's the idea.
Is that maybe they could be mid-table, but you're not going to see a significant drop-off from year to year.
or even if you do, it won't be like the bottom
Yeah.
falling out at a historic level.
Yeah.
But here's my take. I don't mind the premise of like getting out in front of it, so to speak, or like we're gonna try and make it optically look like we're not hiding from what's happening. But like the podcast tour, I don't like, you know what I would have done, man?
Yeah.
I would have hit up Kevin Baxter,
Yeah.
LA Times.
Yes.
And I would have been like, Kevin, we'll give you the GM for like an exclusive so we can get like our side of the cap thing on the record, and also as like a show of transparency that we know the fans are upset and that we understand like we won the ship last year, but the price we're paying is over the top. It's unacceptable.
Yeah.
So Kevin, talk to him for an hour. Write up whatever you want in the LA Times. That's what I think they should have done. I think that would have been better than like the Cooligans and the Tim.
They don't even talk about MLS.
The Tim Howard podcast.
They don't even. They're literally a USMNT
It's like
podcast.
this tour is like he's like a celebrity.
Here's what it reads to me. Or maybe I'm wrong. You tell me different. But this looks like a brand saving operation. This looks like they went out to try and plug some holes about the brand of the LA Galaxy. They don't give a shit about the fans. Because if you really did care about the fans in this situation, you are not touching the national media. You're not only going on some fan podcasts and you're good. Like if Will Kuntz wanted to ingratiate himself in the league, he wears that ring, gives it back to him a little bit, says, look, yeah, we may suck right now, but look what we got going. He's not even in his hood, bro. He flew to New York private to record this podcast. I mean, he was flying with the team. They were playing New York City FC or Red Bulls. I'm sorry. This was also before they got 7-0'd, which is even funnier. This was recorded right before they got 7-0'd.
I didn't even think about that.
Which is even funnier. Dude did this instead of being in the locker room, whatever. So like, it's a PR tour for himself, his colleagues, and the team. It has nothing to do with the fans. It has nothing to do with anything. This is an ass-saving operation, and I don't think it's going to work.
That was the next thing I was going to ask is like, do you think it's going to work? Because that's the other thing. Like, I think you're right. Like, it reeks of like desperation.
Yes.
Like our final stand of like trying to save this whole regime, and the only thing that's going to do that is winning some games. You can do the press tour, but if you go to 16-3 over the next few weeks, it's not going to save you.
Well, here was their thought is they're going to do this press tour now. Everyone's going to chirp and say, and then they try and win this El Tráfico game and turn the vibes. I think they were trying to stack vibes, but the problem is
they got blown out 7.
Yeah. It's like, bro, it's like, it's crazy. You can't, bro, this is what I'm saying. There is no foresight in any of these decisions. They're not looking long term at what this means. They're not even looking at what's in front of them. They're just looking at the shiny object on the hill. Going on the Cooligans podcast makes it so clear to me why they signed Marco Royce. But it never mattered about the spreadsheet.
The Marco Royce signing is like if Billy McFarland of Firefest was GMing.
Wills is Billy McFarland. LA Galaxy are the Fire Festival of Major League Soccer, but they have a ring.
That's the vibes. It would be like if Billy had all the criminal activity, but Firefest actually was.
He ran like one Coachella.
Yeah, like Firefest was actually kind of sick.
Yeah.
But then the next year it became Firefest.
Yeah.